Hi, this is Ms. Preston here to talk about standardized tests and who should take them. So we are going to get started on a little bit of information about SATs and ACTs. What are standardized tests and who should take them? The SAT is the Scholastic Aptitude Test, and it's historically used by colleges and universities to determine a student's ability to be successful in their first year in college. The SAT tests students in math and English. It is something that is given at many test centers throughout the state of Maine. So there typically is an ease of being able to register for and take the SAT. In the last year and a half due to the pandemic, that has been reduced pretty significantly, but there are definitely places that students can take the SATs here in Maine with relative ease. The SAT is a product of the College Board, and students are required to register directly through the College Board for the test. So you would log into collegeboard.org, create an account if you don't already have one. If you've taken the PSATs or done any AP exams or things like that, you would already have a College Board account. That College Board account is something that you would have created yourself. So you should have the username and password for that account. The ACT is a product of American College Testing. It's very similar to the SAT. The test feels a little bit different. It uses a different scoring system and includes a science section along with math and English. So students who are strong in science and maybe a little bit weaker in other areas, the ACT can be a great option for them. Also a way for students who do well on the SAT to also take the ACT and show that they have a science background and knowledge as well. There are fewer local testing locations for the ACT. It is not something that is used as highly on the East Coast. So it is offered in Maine. It is offered on a fairly regular basis, but sometimes you do have to travel a little bit further to be able to take the ACT. If you want to take the ACT, you would register directly on act.org. The cost of taking these standardized tests is $55 for the SAT, and the ACT is a $60 test. And if you take the ACT with the writing, which is an option, it is an $85 test. There are fee waivers for students who qualify financially. Typically, students who qualify for free or reduced lunch would potentially qualify for an SAT or ACT fee waiver. You can talk to your school counselor if you think you qualify for a fee waiver to be able to get that information. Now, who needs to take the SATs? What does test optional mean? Many colleges in the last year and a half have gone to a test optional process, meaning that students are not required to send a standardized test for admission. The entire University of Maine system, along with schools like Harvard, have all gone to SAT optional in the last 18 months. This means that if you send scores, if you take an SAT, you do well, and you send those scores to the college, they are going to take a look at those scores and use those in consideration of your application. If you do not send test scores, they obviously will not be able to consider those test scores in the process of reviewing your application. So if you are applying to the University of Maine and you send them standardized test scores, they will consider them. If you do not send them test scores, they will look completely at your GPA, your transcript, and the courses that you've taken in high school in order to determine if you are eligible for admission. Sometimes a school will say that they are test optional, but they are not test optional for all programs. This is where it gets really confusing. This is where it gets complicated. So, for example, St. Joseph's College of Maine is a test optional school. You will find them on all kinds of websites that list schools that are test optional. But St. Joseph's College is not test optional if you are applying to their nursing program. You have to submit an SAT score in order to be eligible to be accepted into the nursing program at their school. So what this tells us is that every student needs to take a look at the colleges that they're interested in applying to and ensure that they're looking at test optional schools and test optional programs if they are choosing not to submit SAT scores. For the most part, we have seen SAT scores being required from test optional schools in highly competitive programs like nursing, potentially engineering, but there may be others. So I encourage you to take a look at the website and the recommendations and requirements for the specific program that you are applying for each specific school. What does it mean when a school says they're test blind? Test blind schools mean that they will not consider SAT or ACT scores regardless if a student submits them or not. So if you are going to submit your SAT scores to a test blind school, they're just not going to look at them. So it's good to know if you're looking at a school that is test optional that will consider your SAT scores if you send them, or test blind, a school that will not. Some schools are what they describe as test flexible. Test flexible schools accept all kinds of different standardized tests. So you could apply to a test flexible school using an SAT score, an ACT score, multiple AP exam scores, potentially even NWEA scores. There are multiple ways that students can prove on a standardized test that is not those two specific tests that they are able to be successful at the college level. So how do you know? How do you know if you should take a standardized test for college admission? The best way to know for sure is, again, to directly check the admissions website of the schools that you are interested in applying to. You can visit fairtest.org to get a list of SAT optional schools, but again, keeping in mind that those schools sometimes require SATs or ACTs for specific programs. Ultimately, it can be helpful to have a conversation directly with your school counselor to go over the lists of colleges that you plan to attend to apply to, and to discuss the programs in which you are looking at, so we can best make the decision about whether or not you should take a standardized test. Students actually have to submit their SAT scores directly from the College Board to the college that they're applying to. That would be the same for ACT scores or any other standardized test scores you choose to send to the colleges you apply to. So if you are applying to the University of Maine, you need to log on to the College Board's website, log into your account, and choose to send your scores directly from the College Board to the University of Maine. Sanford High School School Counseling Office does not send standardized test scores directly to colleges. Those scores have to come directly from the testing institution to the college or university. If you have questions about that, feel free to reach out to your school counselor and we'll do everything we can to help you. If you have any questions about standardized tests, if you should take them, or if you can get away with not taking them, feel free to reach out and we'll help you through the whole process. Have a great day.